why did you buy webdesignerpro.com, besides the fact that it's a very cool domain? And like, what are your plans for it? Like, why did you move Web Designer Pro to its own domain? What was your goal?
The reason I bought it was because I wanted to own the .com. I know you don't have to always have the .com, but it was available. I mean, I spent $5,000 on it, so it was an investment to do it, but I know that's going and already has paid off just to own that name. It is a great name. I really, it not only does it represent the outcome of being a member, but it's also like an identity for people now. I mean, you know, like so many people they're pros, like they feel like a pro, even if they're just getting started, they feel like they're becoming a web designer pro. So I wanted to own that domain name. And then for a good year after I bought it, I just redirected it to my sales page for Web Designer Pro, which was at joshhall.co. But I always knew that I wanted to have it be on that domain name.
Welcome to the Web Design Business Podcast with your host, Josh Hall, helping you build a web design business that gives you freedom and a lifestyle you love.
Hey friends, great to have you here for a very special episode of the show here. This is a behind the scenes look at a call that I recently had with my good friend and colleague, Michelle Bourbonniere, who is my personal SEO, copywriting, and keyword research specialist. I am in a bit of an SEO pickle. I have webdesignerpro.com, which is currently a one-page landing page website that feeds into my community, Web Designer Pro. But as you probably know, most of all my resources, all of them up to this point, are at joshhall.co. But I'm wondering now, in short, what should be on joshhall.co and what should be on Web Designer Pro? That's exactly what we're going to get into in this episode here. This is actually just a consult call. Normally we would do this in private, but I told Michelle that I was thinking about airing this. So for those of you who are thinking about your SEO strategy, especially for those of you who have two different brands, maybe a personal brand and a professional brand or a business brand, I really hope this helps because we're really thinking long-term on this. And Michelle is just an absolute gem of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to, again, SEO, copywriting, keyword research. I have relied on her heavily over the past few years, and she always comes through for me, and this conversation was no different. Really helped give me some clarity on this. And if you would like to connect with Michelle, a couple ways you can do that. Number one, you can join Web Designer Pro because she's actually one of our most active members. She is a rock star in Pro, as you'll find out if you haven't met her yet. And if the name sounds familiar, it's because she's been on my podcast a couple times previously. I will have links to all of her previous episodes and her website, which is wordsontherise.com. And you can check the show notes and all the links that we discuss here over at joshhall.co/357. So head there after this. And I would love to hear your thoughts as a listener of the show. Maybe if you're a member of Pro, if you have some thoughts or some takeaways from this that you would love to share with me, or if you have opinions on what I should do, I'm open to hearing from you. You can leave a comment at joshhall.co for now. /357. All right, guys, enjoy this consult call again with my good friend Michelle Bourbonniere. We'll talk about my 2025 SEO strategy.
Michelle, thank you for joining on this one. We are going to do, I guess, kind of a like behind the scenes consultation. Normally we would do this, privately with a one-to-one as my SEO strategist. But I figured, this, a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about here is not like proprietary. I need some SEO help, and I'm happy to let everyone in on the strategy session.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks for inviting me.
So we did a little hot seat in Pro. For those who don't know, we do like weekly coaching calls, and I selfishly took up some time to bring you on and just talk about my, I don't know, what do we call it? SEO conundrum challenges, just this new chapter in my SEO strategy, because in short, just to recap what we talked about already, just to kind of lay the foundation for this, I've had joshhall.co since 2017. I started that not knowing exactly what I would do with the personal brand. Originally, as you know, I was thinking about just making child themes and making like plugins eventually for WordPress and Divi. And then I realized, wow, I really like teaching. And that's what led me to courses. And then I realized, wow, I'm really good at teaching the business side of web design. And then that morphed into more business resources and eventually turning the membership into Web Designer Pro. Now I have webdesignerpro.com, and we're at kind of this I wouldn't say a crossroads, but we're certainly at the beginning of a new chapter, and I'm proactively thinking about the next few years from an SEO perspective on like, how far do I want to go with saying joshhall.co versus my new identity is kind of Josh, the founder of Web Designer Pro. So now I'm looking at like, the goal of this, and to get your insight, is to figure out how far do I want to go with using the domain name Web Designer Pro? What do I move over there? Do I create new content over there? So that's the foundation.
Awesome. What I love about this conversation is that it is actually an open conversation. Like, I know full well that you haven't fully decided yet exactly where the division is going to be between these two domains. So like, it's an open question. And I think like it's a beautiful time to sit back and decide like, okay, I think it's actually so interesting because like, you started out as In Transit Studios, not your personal name. Then you have a personal name brand that you built up very nicely over the years. And now you're back to something else that doesn't have your brand name associated with it, which is like quite the transition, right? And so, yeah, I think that it's an open question, which is a fun question for me. And I specialize in small sites. So now, finally, again, you have a small site. So let's build that thing. So I have some questions for you to get started. Because I think like I need to know, in order to help you, I need to be able to know kind of like where you're at with your decision making in launching a whole new domain at all. And sort of what do you want to get out of it and why did you do it in the first place? So like my first question is just like, why did you buy webdesignerpro.com, besides the fact that it's a very cool domain? And like, what are your plans for it? Like, why did you move Web Designer Pro to its own domain? What was your goal?
The reason I bought it was because I wanted to own the .com. I know you don't have to always have the .com, but it was available. I mean, I spent $5,000 on it, so it was an investment to do it, but I know that's going and already has paid off just to own that name. It is a great name. I really... It not only does it represent the outcome of being a member, but it's also like an identity for people now. I mean, like so many people they're pros. Like they feel like a pro, even if they're just getting started, they feel like they're becoming a Web Designer Pro. So I wanted to own that domain name. And then for a good year after I bought it, I just redirected it to my sales page for Web Designer Pro, which was at joshhall.co. But I always knew that I wanted to have it be on that domain name. So currently, webdesignerpro.com is just a one-pager, and it's just the sales page for Web Designer Pro. But my thinking now is like, because my identity is founder of Web Designer Pro, that's how I'm being introduced. Of some people, some colleagues and partners of mine have like introed me to other people. And in the email, they're like, this is Josh, founder of Web Designer Pro. I'm like, ooh. It's already starting to become my identity. So I feel like to represent that online, that's kind of the jettison of this. So that's kind of where my head is at, is like making it more about Web Designer Pro and kind of starting to chip away, moving from just the personal brand, and at least the web design side of things being all on webdesignerpro.com. Yeah.
I love that. And I love how you explained that it was really the impetus was other people introducing you as such. So it's not that you decided that you changed your identity, that other people started calling you Josh Hall, founder of webdesignerpro.com. And that felt good. Like that this was something that you wanted to move towards. And I think also with like, I mean, I can understand there might be some emotions there. And this is like me playing therapist, not SEO, but like, it's your name. It's really hard to sort of move away from something that's so like your old brand name is your personal name. And so I can understand why that, it's a switch, but it's still your personal name. Like you're not giving up your name. You're just kind of moving your domain over. So maybe if you want to just like make that division in your own head, which is like, I am still Josh Hall, even if I'm putting my stuff on Web Designer Pro.
And this is very much like the foundational conversation and beginning of a strategy that is going to be years long. This will obviously nothing like I'm not just changing the URL to joshhall.co overnight. There's huge impacts, both domain ranking, links. My gosh, the link thing is a huge conundrum here. But a lot of it too is that I'm just, now that I'm 7 years into this personal brand and Web Designer Pro is become what it's become, I really want to make that the thing. And as you know, I love now not having a bunch of separate entities with different courses that are all separate. It's nice just to have everything's Web Designer Pro. So I'm looking at this at more of like a 3 to 5 year vision ahead from an SEO perspective, which I've never really done before, and being really intentional about with this. Like I'm always going to keep joshhall.co, and it's going to be a long transition, but I foresee joshhall.co being a little more just like entrepreneurial, like me as my webpreneur journey, and web design centric stuff is Web Designer Pro. Like people I've had a lot of folks, including pro members, wanting for me to do like a tour of my office and my gear and my setup. So that would be a joshhall.co thing. Now, if I write about how to get web design clients, that would be a Web Designer Pro thing. So that's kind of where my head is at as I'm envisioning the long term with this.
So really building it out as the business side of things, but like also having all the content to support that business, right? So like, I love that you won't have to sort of put everything that you want to do on one domain, that you have a place to put the stuff that's really you, and then a place to put the business which is, this is what your business is. And the fact that you have all of your things bundled into one product now, I think just simplifies everything. And I always like to think about, you have a following already. You have people that follow your podcast, people that are on your newsletter, people that already know you and, follow you as a person. But there's also people that are just meeting you for the first time, and like anything you can do to make that simple and clear, and like that they don't have to sort of figure out your whole story in order to know how to purchase from you. It just makes sense to make Web Designer Pro the place for it. Because I think it's just a much simpler thing to explain to people. So in a sense, like as you're going to these podcast appearances and people are saying, Josh Hall, founder of Web Designer Pro, that's like the beginning of a conversation of what it is that you really specialize in, which I think is just so valuable, rather than like always having to go through the personal brand to the product, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the problem as of right now, is I have so much stuff at joshhall.co, but then now as I'm thinking futuristically here, now it's the nitty gritty of like, what does that look like? How much should I move to Web Designer Pro? It would be pretty easy to start just making some content and moving some pages over to Web Designer Pro. Case in point, we just launched the tiers for Pro. So now members have the ability to upgrade and downgrade between the different tiers. Now, currently we have a page that directs members on how to do that. They can go to that page. That is on joshhall.co. So I would like to put that on Web Designer Pro. So that, that's the kind of example where like, it'd be nice to do that. And then I'm sure we'll get into like the nitty gritty of like, if I start doing content over there, what about the courses? Do the courses that are web design, should they be on Web Designer Pro and just I'm the creator?
So like this was one of my key questions to you, is like right now, all of your descriptions for each of the courses, right? So, I mean, you still have the same set of things. You're just offering them in a different package, right? With the tiers, everything's much more clear now how to do it. And yet people still want to know what's inside your SEO course. People still want to know what's inside your business course. And right now, the information that they would need in order to figure out what's in that course that I'm considering buying that tier of Web Designer Pro, it's in Josh Hall. So like, I think number one has to be moving the course descriptions, basically the course sales pages, over to Web Designer Pro. Now there's an SEO, like make sure we do that properly to make sure that, all the links that went to those pages, all that kind of stuff is proper. But like, I think that the descriptions of the courses themselves, I think those have to belong on Web Designer Pro, because that's the only place where they can be purchased. So you're not moving people back and forth between the two domains, even though thankfully your branding is similar. That helps. Yeah.
And that's the biggie. Obviously the big pivot for me over the past year and a half is going from one-off course sales over at joshhall.co to having them all wrapped up together inside of Web Designer Pro, because it just works for people to have them all together, and then they can move up to community and coaching as their business grows. So,
but I think the contents of those courses, like what's included in them, like, what is the process course? What is the business course? Like all that information is still super important for people as they're deciding whether or not this is the product for them, like whether the courses tier is something they're really going to benefit from. They need to see what's inside. And so that's why I think that content has to move over. So I think let's talk short term. Like courses, like the courses explanations belong on Pro, whether that ends up being a duplication, whether you have it on Josh Hall and on Web Designer Pro, like you could do that as well. But I think that it would make sense to have the course catalog and some kind of explanation of what's inside on Web Designer Pro as well.
Yeah, because as of right now, there's just a section that has the courses and a brief description of each one. The intricacies of the courses and moving those over is that they are all products under WooCommerce currently at joshhall.co. So that would beg the question of like, would I bring over a quote unquote simple WooCommerce store just as a placeholder for landing pages to retain the metadata and all that stuff? Or
I wouldn't worry about that. I think if you bring, you know me, I'm all about the words. So if anybody who doesn't know me, I'm an SEO that does it all with words. So for me, I think as long as you bring the copy over, like the back end of how it all works and, you know, the actual how to purchase it stuff, I wouldn't worry so much about that. But bringing the copy over, and then of course, like adjusting it to the new system, right? So of course it's not a product anymore. So then, you know, there won't be the same sets of buttons, but making it so that the same level of detail. So like all the testimonials from everybody who's loved the course, like all those things are really relevant at the course level. And I think they still belong on, or they now belong on Web Designer Pro. That just makes sense to me.
Do you put any stock into 5-star reviews on search results? Because right now, since my courses are a product as WooCommerce, so for those who don't know, at joshhall.co, the courses have for years been a WooCommerce product. But then when you purchase that product, it then takes you into LearnDash, which is where the course was housed at joshhall.co. Once Circle added course feature, that's when I moved them over to Web Designer Pro. So currently the listing on SEO, on search results, is a product, is like, it says product, that's the post type, and it's got, you know, 5-star review. Is that, you think that's
a good question? So I'd have to look into that. This is like the classic SEO, it depends answer, which is like, we need to go figure out whether those stars are showing up consistently or not. If they are, then sure. But also like look to click-through rates to see, because I know sometimes, you know, you can put in all the rich snippety stuff that you want, but sometimes Google still doesn't show it. So like go make sure that it's actually working before you worry about it. But that's a really good question. But I wonder, does Circle have an ability to like, maybe that's where the course descriptions belong, is via part of Circle that would allow you to keep those things.
You can, in Circle for courses, enable a forward-facing sales page, but it's limited. I mean, it's very, very limited.
We have such nice pages that I'd hate to see. You know, it's limited probably in the design of it, right? And so like you have such nice pages with such nice testimonials and all that kind of stuff, and like they're really thoughtfully put together. And so I could see how just going to something basic isn't really.
But I would be open to that now, since the course pages, I think, are just more skimmed, even more so now. Whereas like prior to this setup, if somebody's going to invest $1,000 into the business course, which is what it was previously, they're really going to go through that page, and they may not even look at other courses. They may just be at that page. Now, since the business course is the main course of the suite of courses, they may scan it faster. So I'm open to making the course pages simpler, more scannable, brief. So with that in mind, like that's something I'm open to. But I agree from an SEO perspective, like the sounds like the easiest way to go about it would be to just have it as a post or a page on webdesignerpro.com that has the course.
Well, and I think, so here's my hot take when it comes to SEO these days, is that I think that there is something about engagement. So like, Jay Klaus, who's been on your podcast before and is awesome. He always asks people at the end of his interviews, like, what's one thing that you believe that you don't have any data to prove? I'm like, oh, I love that question. And like my answer to that question is this, which is right now in Google and in SEO, I think that engagement and traffic matters more than links. Like I actually think that having people engage with your site and basically giving the engagement signals to Google that your site really is a legit site, that it's not written by AI, that it was written for humans and there's a real audience for this. And the people who read this site really want to be there. Like all of those things, those engagement signals that you're sending to Google are, I think, really, really powerful. And the sites that I work on that do the best are the ones that like have people staying on the page for a while. And you can see that through Google Analytics or any of another million other tools. And I think that once you have those really strong engagement signals from real humans, your site can really take off without like a ridiculous amount of links. Like I think that there's more, and I think that's how small site SEO should be done. All of this to say how this ties back is that having enough stuff for people to munch on your site, like having enough pages on your site, having enough content on your site, that it's not just like one page and then take it or leave it, even if it is a really long page, but like to have some more subsidiary content. And then couldn't just be only the course pages, although the course pages will help. But having, of course, like also other forms of content, like, blog posts and really informational stuff that really positions you as the expert that you are. I think that, that's how I see sites. Like I've started looking into sites that I work on, and the ones that have, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on a blog post as an average, like viewing time, they do better than the ones that have 30 seconds. Like it's like, I can put my sites into 2 buckets. And so like the quality of your content and the fact that people are really engaging with it is a really strong signal. And I mentioned this in the Q&A in Pro, but also Google last year had this antitrust trial. And so they had to say a lot of things about how Google works that they kind of didn't want to say, but they had to. And one of the things that came out of that is that the way that they're checking that traffic is Chrome. Like they have forever said that they're not watching people use the internet on Chrome, but actually they are. And so basically it doesn't even matter where the traffic is coming from, even traffic that's coming from your email list, even traffic that's coming from social media. If they're on your site and they are engaged and they spend time there and they like what they see, those I think that's basically how Google tells the difference between spam sites and real sites.
Yeah. And I have no doubt with the course pages and then the kind of the pillar content that I figured we could dive into here, that those would work in tandem together. I mean, already I just looked at my analytics in Fathom. So this year, the average time on webdesignerpro.com is 3 minutes and 57 seconds. It's almost 4 minutes, which also makes sense because for a lot of reasons, it's a big one page.
Yep.
It's kind of like, but it's also, it's the consolidation of Web Designer Pro, which I could talk about for hours, each little section consolidated to one page. So it really is kind of a guide through what you get in Web Designer Pro. So it makes sense, especially if somebody's interested, that they're going to probably want to read into it before they join.
I think the only people that are currently on that page are already super engaged, right? Because the people that are coming to that page are coming from the podcast. They're coming from the newsletter. They're coming, maybe from a podcast appearance that you've done. Like they're not just kind of people that stumbled upon it. They're actually people that are like, I want to find out about this thing. And so then they find out about this thing. And so I think that is probably a lot what's helping you with this relatively new and, a one-pager site that's ranking. That's awesome.
Because it is already ranking. What'd you say my domain authority is? Isn't already in the 20s?
You already have a domain authority of 22, which is quite respectable. And like, as we explained previously, it's because you had links to your previous page on joshhall.co, you redirected it over. And so like all of the links that were directly to joshhall.co are now being attributed to webdesignerpro.com. And on top of that, you have people who are searching for Web Designer Pro because you have lots of people that are searching for it. And then they find webdesignerpro.com in the search results and click on it. So like you're getting traffic because you are Web Designer Pro. That's your brand name. And so people are finding it through that as well. So just to say, it's ranking really well for Web Designer Pro, many of which are people that are specifically clicking for you. But like Web Designer Pro is also not only people, like, you're probably getting some people to that site that didn't know you personally, but actually just searched Web Designer Professional because they were looking for a professional web designer. Yeah,
right. Or a lot of the related searches, like how much does a web designer professional cost?
There you go.
Great blog post from Designer Pro. So let's say, this is hypothetical. If I were to start migrating some content in the way of the course pages over to Web Designer Pro and creating some big meaty blog posts, which I want to dive into next.
We need to get into that.
One thought would be like I could technically keep the product pages over at joshhall.co, but then those just redirect to the course pages at webdesignerpro.com as like a transition piece.
Yep.
I'm wondering if maybe it would almost be like the content of the current pages would be over at webdesignerpro.com, and then the current product pages would just be a quick, we'd retain a little bit of SEO as more of a transition.
Yes, you could do that. And I think like we would have to look into the actual traffic that each of those pages are driving. So like, I think some of yours rank for things and some of them don't. And so like the ones that aren't bringing in independent traffic from Google, I would worry about less. But if anything was bringing in traffic, especially if it's bringing in traffic currently, then I would be a bit more like, let's leave that page over there.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I just don't.
Moving can be like you've done really well with Web Designer Pro, but like I'm like the world's most risk averse SEO, and so to me, it's like if it's not broken, don't fix
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
And yet also make sure that it's not getting in the way. You don't want to add friction into your buying experience.
Yeah.
So like if it's unnecessary, then don't do it. But I do think it's good to have more descriptions of the courses. It's funny that we're talking so much about the courses, but to have more description of the courses on Web Designer Pro just makes like sense.
Yeah, and this
People
is
would expect
important. I think this makes sense as like a first phase of this because the courses are inside of Web Designer Pro.
Yeah.
So I would think, like if I'm going to join Web Designer Pro, I would probably like to see what's in the courses on that domain versus like zip, I'm back at joshhall.co, zip, I'm back at Web Designer Pro. So that's definitely the main pieces of this in short are the course pages, future content, like upcoming content that are going to be more pillar, like big meaty pieces that are always going to be referenced to, and case studies, student successes and wins. I'd like to start getting those over because I've got like a dozen ready to go almost over at joshhall.com. Like, man, these should really be on Web Designer Pro. And then that's most of it. That's most of it there. Because a lot of my other blog posts and Divi tutorials and stuff, I'm fine with keeping at joshhall.co. Like I don't plan on having Divi tutorials be on webdesignerpro.com, but that would be where, like big, meaty, business-centric content would be that feeds right into Pro courses, case studies, and then also the Web Designer Pro swag. So the Pro swag, that's another thing.
Yes.
That's at joshhall.co right now. So that would be one thing that would potentially be moved. Oh, and then the last thing would be lead generators. So like my free sign up.
Let's talk lead generators.
Yeah.
What
So
are you
there's
going
like
to do with
4 or
those?
5. That's why you're here, Michelle. I need help. I don't know what to do.
So first, for starters, tell me which lead generators you have going right now and sort of what's the system.
I'm about to have 3. There's 2 currently. So what we identified with a big audit in the research we did this summer in Pro is that there's really 3 profiles, pun intended. There are we call them builders, like early stage designers who are usually maybe less than 1 to 2 years in business. They are fully in the stage of starting their business, learning how to get clients, learning their offers, learning their pricing, learning how to run a business. And then there's the growers, which is the second kind of tier or the second grouping. Those are a little more established. They're either full-time or close to full-time. They're likely getting to 6 figures or getting into past 6 figures. They're more interested in like more profit, recurring revenue, and taking their business to the next level. And then there's the scalers who are the true agency owners and business owners who are more worried about getting their time back, building a team, working on their processes, and really truly making their business, getting that to the next level. So to that end, there's a free lead generator for each tier.
Okay, tell me what they are.
So currently there's start and scale. Okay. Grow is the one I'm about to launch, but part of me is like, should I just wait until I get it all on webdesignerpro.com if I do it like that? So the start tier, the start free lead generator is at right now, joshhall.co/start. And that it's a 10-step action plan on how to start your web design business.
Okay.
The grow one is going to be how to get to 6 figures. So it'll be very intentional to those who are probably making maybe 40, 50,000 and want to get to 6 figures. These are the top 6 steps to 6 figures is what I'm calling it. And then scale. I basically have a master class that has my top tips from my scaling course on how to scale your web design business your way. And that is going to be the perfect lead generator for the top tier of Pro, basically. So those are my lead generators: start, grow, and scale.
What format are they? Are they videos? Are they checklists? Are they a series of emails? Like, what are they?
Currently video and checklist.
Awesome. Okay. Because so my clients that are doing the best with lead gen can also find a keyword to rank their actual thing from. So there's nothing better in terms of conversion rates. Like if you put these things on, you mentioned them in your podcast, of course, you put them on, blog posts that are ranking well, of course, like everybody does that. But like the actual best way to do it is when you actually manage to rank them for something that somebody's looking for. So like if you have, what's a good example? Well, I have a client who does a fertility thing and she has charts. So like you need to have charts to do this thing and she ranks for charts. So like she ranks for charts and then people give them their email addresses because they're actually in the mood for the chart today because that's what they just ranked for. So if there's a way that we can find your actual lead magnets to rank for something, then your conversion rate will be through the roof because you're actually giving people what it is that they want today. But then on top of that, of course, you want to also, so I think one really big thing we need to work on for you with all of this pillar content that we haven't really explained, but we're planning out, is matching each one of those things to a profile. So making sure that you do not waste anybody who's coming to your site, that you're providing them with their next step within the blog post itself. So I always call this, I don't know what these things are called. I call them a CTA block, like a call to action block. And the way I tell people is that like, some people sell ads on their websites, right? Like you can sell ads on your website and it gets inserted within the text. But like if you have a website, then it's your prerogative to insert your own ads within the text. And so like to make sure that there's a block, not even just a pop-up, but like a block that's super obvious within the post being like, I can help you take the next step. Here is how. And then make sure that like you basically don't publish a blog post without a CTA block that's inserted into the text. Not at the bottom, but like, closer to the top.
And so I'm writing some notes on this. So if you see, if you see me typing, I'm
awesome.
Writing down some of this stuff. So I'm so glad you mentioned this, Michelle, because this is another reason why I wanted to jump on this, because I don't want to create a bunch of really meaty pillar style content and then not have the lead generators ready or the sequences or the right path ready from an SEO perspective. So I kind of feel like, well, step one was the offers, the new version of Pro with the tiers. Next step is the URL, the SEO strategy. The next step will be the content creation and the funnels to those. I think you're going to be really excited about this because here's the grand vision. The ending point is the 3 tiers of Pro. The courses tier, you get access to my entire suite of courses. That's going to be ideal for the builders in that first category. They can have time to go through the courses before coming up to the community and coaching tiers. The second lead generator for the grow tips, that's going to be a perfect segue into the community tier for Web Designer Pro, because not only they get the courses, but they get the community. And as we know, community support can really help you get to 6 figures faster. 100%. And then the coaching tier, which is nearing capacity now, and we'll be at a wait list, but we'll have spots open up likely every month, a few spots, or every other month at least. That's going to be ideal for scalers, because scalers generally are ready to talk to me about like intricate complexities with their business. And then they get access to my personal network and then the pro network to hire and to get the people they need and the systems they need to be able to scale their way. So the ending point are the 3 tiers. The next level from that would be the lead generators that are going to be perfect for each one of those tiers. And then all the content will fit in one of those 3 buckets, like you said. So there's new web designer content that goes into the first bucket, to the start lead generator, then up to the courses tier and pro. There's going to be content for folks who want to build recurring revenue and get more profit and make 6 figures. That's in the middle bucket. That goes to the middle funnel. That goes to the community tier of pro. And then there is the scaling content, which is going to be about team building, time, all that good stuff. That goes into the top bucket, scaling masterclass, and then the scaling or the top tier coaching tier. So
it's so nice to build something from scratch, right? Like I think that this is the beauty of like having a bit of a blank slate, is you can be like, how would I do this if I did it right? Like right from the beginning, excited about.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like the past couple of years, I couldn't really. The way I had it set up, you just joined pro at what was previously the top tier. So. I really didn't have a great path for the beginner folks because my courses were sold separately. And it was just kind of hodgepodge. I was all over the place. This kind of all goes back to the quote, what gets you here won't get you there.
Yep.
And that's what I realized with my model at joshhall.co. That model was really good and it served me well and it served students for a while. But once I realized that we were all in on pro and I wanted to have the mix of courses, community, and coaching and have that available to people at the right stage where they were ready for it.
To really to capitalize on it, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I've been in pro since the beginning and it's amazing. You asked me before this call, like, what are your social handles? And I'm like, none, just find me in pro. Like, I don't even do social media. I just do pro. And it's amazing in there. But the thing is that to have a way in so that people can kind of join when they're at the spot in their lives to sort of have the right thing. Like, I think that's what's so great about having access to the courses. And I love that you're providing it in a way that like people don't have to binge them. They don't have to feel like they have to do all of the courses in 1 month and then be done with it or whatever. And then also like, as you get into the courses, you just like naturally want to meet other people that do what you do. And like the community is like an obvious next step for those people. So like, I like how your things are building on each other in a way that just seems very natural, like very much the life cycle of a web designer. And like, I've seen these people in pro, so like, I know how well it fits. So like, I'm just so excited that you now have a way to really help people at each of those stages. And then I think that the next step, like you said, I think the next step is to have content that supports each of those stages, right? Because some people will already be ready for community or even for coaching. Like they will have just met you and they'll be already at the sort of community growing type stage, where other people are just like getting their feet wet and figuring out their tools. And these are the people that really need your courses. Anyway, so I just feel like if we have a set of really helpful, like the thing with the way at least I do SEO is that like, you just need to write something that only you could have written. And you've been doing this for so long that like you have so much experience, like so many stories, so much firsthand stuff of people at each of these stages. And like AI can't write that. Like AI cannot write in the first person. Like you can. And so to be able to like bring that real life experience into each of your things, like that's just like literally not replicable stuff. Like the stuff that you can write, no one else can write. And I think that's
I can't wait to write fully my guide to getting web design clients. So I have like 50 ways to get clients. It's already mapped out. Most of those are in the business course and the lessons on getting clients, but this just goes even further into 25 ways to do it in person, 25 ways to do it virtually.
I have a fun idea for you.
Okay. All right.
I know these 50 ways because I've seen it in your newsletter. And so awesome that you already have 50 ways, but no small feat brainstorming 50 ways. What if you made that into an email sequence where it's like you get one new way to find a client for the next 50 days. Like, I just feel like these people who are right at the beginning of their business, give them the 50, but then like give them something to keep on going. Like do an email sequence that keeps it top of mind. Because I mean, one of my best friends is in pro and she's starting her business. So like, I know what this feels like to her right now.
Hey,
and
Liz.
at the beginning, hey, Liz, Liz Agadello, Handshake Marketing.
She's awesome, by the way. Yeah.
She's awesome. And so I know because we've been talking a lot about as she's launching this business. So I have my head in the sort of like just launching a business and getting started just because I have a friend that's going through that right now. And like, you need to keep on being reminded that getting your first clients is what you got to do. And so it's one thing to get 50 answers all at once. And I think that for SEO, that's actually what you need because that's what people will click on. But that's actually really overwhelming for somebody who just... Right? It's like, so just to say that if you could find a way, maybe it's not one a day for 50 days, maybe it's 7 a week for 7 weeks, whatever. But to do it so that it keeps on staying top of mind so that it can be the same list of things, but just so that they keep on remembering, oh, maybe this is the strategy for me. Or like, oh, I could go to Alexi in the pro, like, going to a ribbon cutting ceremony, like going to any event you can in your local business, just to say, hey, here I am and I'm in business. Anyways, those are the types of ideas that I think, just to find ways to like make your lead magnets last longer, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about that is like, that could even be, maybe it's a challenge. Like somebody could sign up for The email sequence for that lead generator, people still need like the action plan to get a business started, because before they're ready to get clients, like you need to know what your offers are going to be. So this is almost like not the very first thing a starter needs. It's like the next thing they need. So I'm almost wondering, I love this idea though. Maybe the first lead generator would be my guide to starting web design business. But then when you get that, you also get my 50 ways to get clients as like almost like a challenge or a workshop or something that is dripped out. Yeah,
I love the idea of making it a challenge, which is like, I challenge you to do 1 out of 5. Like every week, choose one of these things and just do it. Like do it scared, do it. I think that's so fun.
And the cool thing too is I still plan on making this a big old meaty blog post, like you said.
Yeah.
And then also a video. So, and this is even more so reason I wanted to get this SEO stuff nailed down is because I don't want to do a video and say, go to joshhall.co/50. I mean, I could, but that I could foresee being like a pillar piece of content that I'm going to be referencing for years. I mean, I still have videos from 2017 I'm referencing today. So I've learned, let's make sure we get this ready before you get to, same thing with books. Like you want to make sure your URL is ready before you do a printed book kind of thing. So,
and really like making it, like thinking of it as your body of work, right? So like thinking of it as this is something that I'm putting out in the world. And of course you can keep it updated, like the actual text, because you come up with a new idea, by all means, add it to your list of ways to get clients. But having, one place on the internet where you do this thing. However, now, like if we're going to take this, I love this idea of the 50 clients because it's an obvious, ways to get web design clients is clearly something people need and search on the internet. Like I can tell you at least that. But now think about how would you flip that to be your middle audience? How could you, what is it in terms of getting clients that the growers need, right? What is
recurring revenue? I already know that one. It's recurring revenue for sure. Yeah. So, maintenance support plans, maintenance plans, growth plans. That's the middle tier for sure.
Yeah.
That's,
and also say getting better clients.
Better clients. Yeah.
How do I get my ideal clients? How do I get higher paying clients? How do I move from the people who say, oh no, not that much for a website to people who are like, hell yeah.
And that's what's so interesting about this is that the 3 tiers of profiles, they all still scalers are looking for different ways to get clients. They're like, oh shoot, I didn't think about referral partners.
Yeah.
Instead of going out to new networking events all the time, I could just focus on the people who are like a core referral partner. So there are things that, as you very well know in pro, people at every stage gain from, but there are some common challenge. For example, recurring revenue, before a beginner gets there, they just need to know what their offers are and they need to know how to get clients before they focus on recurring revenue. So, so I definitely think some of these are going to be interchangeable, but primarily, better clients, high paying clients, recurring revenue. Those are the things.
I can almost imagine a matrix of the main topics in web design and your profiles. And then okay, where's the intersection? What's their pain point and how can we help them on the internet? I think that's the beauty of SEO is that you can have ideas of what it is that they need, because you know this audience so well and you work with these people all day in, day out. And then you go find what are the words that they're using when they're having that problem on the internet. And then you sort of match those 2 pieces together. So you have your amazing idea with the leads and then we optimize it so that it finds its audience, right? So that it's not just something that you publish on the internet and Google doesn't understand, that actually Google sends traffic to this page when people that need that thing want it. And so I think that's where Google can be a really good matchmaker for you to really just broaden that is the promise of SEO, right? Is that it can introduce your brand to people that haven't heard about it yet because they're just not a podcast person. They never listen to podcasts. And so they're going to get into them after they find your brand. But it can be a visibility thing, much like YouTube, much like social media. But it's just another way to get visibility for your new brand. And it just makes sense because you just launched a new website that it would make sense that you want that brand as well to get some visibility.
And
now all the visibility is at joshhall.co.
Yeah. And one thing that is exciting about this, because this can quickly feel overwhelming. And part of me is I know myself. I need to make sure I don't, add to my to-do list. I'm a busy guy. I got 3 little kids. I don't have, too much time out of what side I'm already doing.
Totally.
But the thought of marketing pro for the next few years here is like, this excites me. This makes total sense as to how this would feed in perfectly with the new tiers of pro, with what we've already talked about, the tiers, the lead generators, and then the pillar pieces of content, which I almost feel like any ongoing content, newsletter, smaller videos, things like that, I could just keep at joshhall.co, but all those would direct to the pillar content at Web Designer Pro. Like that's where everything goes to. So part of me is really excited about this because I could foresee like 5 or 6 meaty blog posts being all I need for a couple years.
Yeah. And as I've said, like I have clients that are rocking it on 15 blog posts, right? Like rocking it so much that they had to stop writing because it was, SEO is a fire hose. Like if it works, it works. And when you get a lot of.
I think it was on a coaching call or hot seat when you said that, didn't you have like 6 or 8 pieces of
I have 8 blog posts on my website, yes.
Blog posts. Meanwhile, I'm over here like a freaking hamster trying to kick out newsletters and podcasts, which are all great and are all beneficial, but I don't have those the pillar pieces of content that are free for everyone that folks can get to, backed up now by a perfect lead generator. And then that's going to guide them to where they should start inside of Web Designer Pro. I'm freaking thrilled about this because this is what I feel like 7 years has culminated to this moment. Like
you're more than ready to write we're really just talking about writing. You're even more than ready to write them because you've been writing for 7 years. Like, I mean, I think if I look back to your Elegant Themes blog posts, they're excellent. And so like, you just need to write stuff. I mean, I've been telling you this for years, but stuff like that, put on your own website would do so well. Like people on the internet really need this stuff. And so like, you're already doing a fantastic job with audio and with video, and you are a really good writer, but most of it's right now in your newsletter. And so like just some of it needs to be available.
Which was intentional, by the way. One reason I started the newsletter is to do more intentional writing, to get faster at writing, to get quicker with thoughts, with formatting, how I like to speak. And that has helped a lot. I mean, there's been times over the past year where I'm like, oh, should I just stop the newsletter? Like it's Friday night and I gotta format this. And so I have found myself working on like Saturdays and a couple Sunday mornings. I'm hustling to like button a few things up. Like, I didn't want to get myself into that position, but it has been so helpful. And every time I'm thinking about backing off the newsletter, somebody inevitably sends me a note that's like, I'm addicted to, like, I look forward to Sunday mornings just to get your newsletter. I'm like, oh, that's so great.
And
all right.
I love the responses. To me, like, I mean, in a world where most of the ways that you connect with your audience are either mediated by algorithms in a way that is really not healthy for anyone. So like social media is not my favorite place. So there's that. Or it's very one way, right? Like when you're doing a podcast or when you're doing YouTube, like there's less like the back and forth or like the real human back and forth. So to me, having a newsletter as well, what I love is the replies. Like I love knowing that I'm sending a real email to people that I really know. And then just some of them reply to me with like hilarious, like I sent an email out once about, like a shower, waterproof shower paper for collecting ideas while you're like, I get all my best ideas.
I remember that. Right? Yeah.
You wouldn't believe how many people wrote me back and were like, tell me more about what your favorite pen is. Cause I had put a little thing in there being like, every month I find a new favorite pen. And then they're like, but what's your favorite pen now? I want to know. So like the real back and forth with people, I think is the funnest part about a newsletter. And that's what keeps me going is that like, it's real communication and it's not mediated by an algorithm. And I just love that.
Yeah. So again, the content I'm doing now, I don't plan on backing off the newsletter. The podcast is obviously my number one generator. And as I have these funnels and pillar content, that makes me a lot more confident to do videos about that on YouTube because I'm Josh, founder of Web Designer Pro. I can still have that as a video on webdesignerpro.com with the blog post, but it can also live on joshhall.co or so that's kind of my personal brand. So
totally. Well, and you have such an established YouTube channel. You'd be crazy to like start a new one under Web Designer Pro, right? Like that's I don't know much about YouTube, but I know that that's crazy.
Yeah. And people don't follow brands like that. Like it's better for me just to be, it's better to have a playlist for the podcast, a playlist for Web Designer Pro and case studies and stuff like that, but just be under me, joshhall.co.
Totally.
For now, at least, for sure.
So with for YouTube is going to stay as is, but you'll link to and make mention of Web Designer Pro resources like the pillar pieces, like the real meaty content that's there for these types of people, as well as of course like your lead magnets.
And you just said it. Did you hear the term you just said? How natural. Web Designer Pro resources.
There you go.
That is a really easy thing. People be like, oh, all right, well, Pro is the membership, but there's a bunch of free resources, and it's the pillar content, it's the free lead generators.
And would that make it, if you think of it as resources instead of blogging, will that make it less like stressful to you, right? Then it makes sense that you only have 7 of them.
Oh, it's so would. That's a genius point, Michelle. Resources do sound like, I mean, going back to what I did for my clients, I had a resources page. It was 12 videos. I did them. I knocked them out over the span of a few days. They were each little videos and blog posts to help my clients. And that was it. I did have a separate blog. I started occasionally, but the resources were just like a dozen resources. So that's how I envision the quote unquote blog.
So you need to start like a resources section in Web Designer Pro.
So
and that's where you're, and then also that gives you the freedom to, like, you know, you're a web designer, that gives you the freedom to make resources that actually just have really high production quality as well. Like if it needs an infographic, make an infographic. Like if it like lay it out, don't just write a blog post, but like make it. And then of course you can embed your videos and like, you know, make it like a great place to be on the internet, which will also help your engagement.
And then case studies for the success stories that I have. Again, I'm thinking those should live on webdesignerpro.com. And then those could also feed into the right category, to the right lead generator, to the right posts that are relevant to them. Because if I help a starter who suddenly grows their business, boom, here's the next. If you want to be the next Sam, for example, although Sam is already scaling. So he's, you know, the eagle who went through
he's all of the tiers all at once.
A year. Sam, freaking wild man. Awesome. So like but like somebody in that journey, I could say like, this is going to be a great place for you. Here's a free lead generator. Here's a blog post. Here's the guide to start your business. Here's 50 ways to get clients. And then the middle person who, you know, had a business, Mark, for example, who had a established business, but Mark Hyde is now at a different level. He is like, he would be a prime success story for the middle tier. And then folks who are scaling, my gosh, some of those are going to be great as a success story and say like, this is perfect for you. Here's my masterclass on scaling. Here's a couple resources, not blog post, resources for you.
And what I love about case studies in your particular, like in Web Designer Pro, because it's so community based. And like, again, I know these people all quite personally, and they're amazing people. And I think that it's important for you on Web Designer Pro to show the people, right? Because it is really kind of about the people. And so if people can see Mark's story and kind of be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of in that position, like maybe Pro is for me. Like, I think that those are really important pieces for people to see, especially like in the world of the internet where like there's a lot of fakeness that goes on, and like Web Designer Pro is not fake. And it's important for people to know that like, it's really a community of people.
And that's the beauty about the podcast too, is it feeds perfectly into this, because the interviews I've done with a lot of these members on the podcast, it's like, here's their story that's kind of summed up. And then here's our full interview. If you want to really hear the ins and outs of how he or she did this, here's our interview.
And so I think like just double publishing them on Web Designer Pro. So any like Web Designer Pro community member where you've really kind of done their story in a podcast format, I think that makes sense. Whether you call it a testimonial, whether you call it a case study or not, like just, you know, community stories or like member stories or something like that, so that people can like work their way through the stories of people building their web design businesses, which is very relatable.
No, I really like that. And each one of them could be, in that kind of category of a starter, a builder, or a scaler. Because there's plenty of starters who have a success story. I mean, Anik recently landed almost an $8,000 project. She's a starter. She just started her business. That's an amazing little success story.
And Ben too. Ben would be a perfect person for that, right? Like he's, you know, selling like huge projects and has a really cool business. So there's lots of like, so I think maybe that's the thing. Every resource and every success story, every sort of case study that you present, like have them slotted into so that you know who they're for. And then that can just like help your content planning going ahead. And it can also help make sure that you're sort of balanced, that you're you're presenting for each of the different groups of people thoughtfully, maybe not equally. I don't know if they need to be 100% equal, because there's always going to be more people at the beginning stages and at the end stages, but at least so that you make sure that you're creating content for everybody at every stage and kind of doing that purposefully and thoughtfully.
That's great. That
fun.
feels like a good, solid plan to me as far as like what's put on Web Designer Pro, the course pages, some of the hidden pages now, like the upgrade, downgrade, a few other FAQs, a few other things like that.
And a contact form, like all the real basics of a website to make sure that like if they're there and they have questions, they know how to get in touch with you, stuff like that.
Pillar content, which again, so lead generator, so lead generators, case studies, few new pillar content that I plan out, and then the course pages. Those sound like that would be the first version of Web Designer Pro, which would eventually webdesignerpro.com would be, with all those things combined, probably a like 20-ish page website, something like that.
And I love having smaller websites because there is something, so just back to the SEO of it all, is there something to be said for having a smaller footprint, but having all of your pages performing. So I think that's part of how it's working with me and with clients, is that like, we don't have a lot of pages that aren't driving traffic. Like all of them were intentional from day one. And so the average quality of each page on your site is actually really high because you're not spreading yourself thin. And so I think like if you only put on new pages kind of thoughtfully, and, you know, with a real goal, either a business goal or an SEO goal, I think that can really help, you know, keep this domain as like the place for people to learn about web design businesses. Like, I think that's the key thing. And it's easy for you at this point because you know that's what you do. And so the bar for it becoming a page on this new site should be like, is it about web design? Like the business, not, you know, newsy stuff, or like, and is it evergreen?
Yeah,
I think maybe that's the other piece of it, is like, is this going to stand the test of time? Is this kind of a forever piece of content?
That's what excites me about this even more, is I really, really strongly feel like the map that we just laid out there, those 20 to 25 pages are going to be good for like a couple years. I don't plan on doing a bunch of new content on webdesignerpro.com, at least not in the short term. Long term, maybe eventually, if I completely drop any of my web design centric stuff at joshhall.co and it's just all at pro, then maybe that would be a little more robust. But like when I did the circle videos recently on YouTube, those have taken off. Like if you search circle.so, have you done that at all?
No, I haven't. I should.
This is a whole other can of worms. Do you want to search real quick?
Sure, just do it.
Search circle.so, or just search circle SO and let me know how many times you see me.
Circle SO, like no dots or anything, just Googling it?
In case people are searching circle SO.
Let's see here.
It might work with Circle Community Platform too.
Oh, look at that. 10 amazing features of circle.so. I see you there.
Not video?
Yeah. Awesome. And then you again. And then you again. Good job. Oh, that's fantastic.
I've learned the ways. And
this is
for it, I'm sorry, Michelle. I did zero keyword research on those, by the way.
Doesn't matter.
Zero. All I did was I just posted, like what I thought was good quality content about Circle, because I'm getting so many questions about community building and memberships and courses. Long term, I'm having so many of these conversations. I'm like, I would love to talk more about this. You know me, like I like to talk about what I'm doing right now. So I'm actually doing way more community building and online courses and memberships. So I could absolutely eventually see joshhall.co being kind of a split between community builders and course creators. Here, there's some resources, and then all my web design stuff is here at webdesignerpro.com. That's kind of the long-term goal.
Love that.
For joshhall.co as I'm thinking about it.
You're already getting started on the SEO already.
And this benefits web designers too, though, because a lot of my Web Designer Pro members are asking me, they have clients who want to do a course or do a membership or do coaching.
That's what I was going to say, is there's no clear division between people that set up web design communities and web designers. So many people, because it's really these high level projects that people need websites for, that they go to a web designer for in many cases. So it's these more complicated sites that people don't know how to DIY, like a membership site.
Exactly. And a lot of web designers are now starting to be strategists and consultants, and they're kind of coaching their clients. So I've had a lot of conversation with pros who are doing this, and they have like a top tier for their growth plan or maintenance plan clients. And they're asking me about Circle because they want to do like a monthly Q&A with clients, or they want to have a client forum or some resources. I'm like, yeah, you can 100% do it in Circle. Here's my Circle video. So all that to say, like, I've intentionally dipped my toe into this because I'm a Circle fanboy, because it's what I do day in and day out now as a community builder, and because I've partnered with Circle to create those videos. So they were sponsored videos. So I was like, hell yeah, I would love to do that. So all that to say, like, that is proof that like I can do that, and I could start to come up, for the ranks for community building. So that's kind of nice to have that as an additional avenue. By no means am I going to start like opening the can of worms of being a community builder industry, expert. But if I can get pro to the point where like everything funnels to the pillar content, those lead generators, I have the offers, pro is very sustainable for me now. Then I can experiment with joshhall.co and have that more be about me as an entrepreneur, webpreneur. And I could do like, if I wanted to do a tutorial on Canva, which I've done, if I wanted to do a tutorial on, like my office home setup, I could do that. And it's a little more entrepreneurial. So
it's almost like you launched Web Designer Pro to have a really organized space for Web Designer Pro, which is, the thing you do mostly, so that you could free up joshhall.co to go back to being that passion project that it was at the beginning.
It took us an hour to eloquently put that in the way that you just did. Yes. That's like exactly it. I would have loved to have started this combo off with that being the goal.
We'll just edit it back.
Now, here's a real conundrum for you. We may need to get Amber here on to talk with us on this, but what about email?
The technicalities of it, yes, we need Amber. Yeah. What do you mean about emails, like newsletters emails, or like literally the DNS stuff?
Yeah, no, like should I now have a josh@webdesignerpro.com email?
Yeah, you kind of do.
Support at webdesignerpro.com. Do I now need to get a whole new account for webdesignerpro.com for Gmail? And Chris, my tech VA, who, if she's listening right now, Chris, freaking absolute magician, unicorn. She really came through and worked with me on the tiers and got all these automations set up, and is just a total whiz. She's kind of like tech support now for Pro. So would she have the support at Web Designer Pro? Is it WDP.com for short?
Oh my goodness. So I think really, truly, it's such a rabbit hole, but I think you have to. Just because of conversions. Like, I think, just imagine that person that just found out that you existed. Imagine signing up for something and saying, yeah, I think I do want to blah, 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 do this Web Designer Pro thing. And then the emails are coming from like a different company. And you're like, I don't know about that. Like, if for just that, I think like you don't want to add that amount of confusion into,
which is not uncommon. I mean, a lot of SaaS companies, like a lot of plugins that I've purchased, the email will come from like a parent company or
I guess you can think of it as a parent company. That's a nice way of looking at it.
Like joshhall.co would be isn't it Grant Cardone who has like Cardone Ventures or something? But it's really common for folks who have bigger, like Tony Robbins, I think has programs under his main personal brand. Like that's the main entity, but these are little entities under it. So that's one way I could go about it. But I agree that at the very least, it might be worth having at least like support at webdesignerpro.com and then it could be masked. Like we could still use the joshhall.co email, but we could mask it as Web Designer Pro. I know you could do that. Again, that's a Amber conversation, who's our email and domain guru and pro.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one thing I thought of too, is like, again, I knew this would open up a bunch of can of worms. So I'm like, now I've got to start thinking about the email and support along with this.
Within stages. Like, I don't think you need to be perfectionist about it. I think like, you're the one that taught me like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, right? And so like phase 1 is bring your course descriptions over to Web Designer Pro. Make that more than a one-page website. Just that. And then start building out, like one piece of content a quarter, like nothing, not, if you're only aiming for 8, 12 real, like meaty pieces in this resource section, like you don't need to do them all in 1 month. Like you can just kind of launch them as you have time to make them.
Can you set a reminder to remind me of that every week? Can you be like, hey, Josh, don't try to do it all at once. Don't try to do it all at once.
And then once a quarter, I'll be like, it's time to do it.
Yeah. Every Friday, can you ping me and just be like, just make it automated. That way you
go
just
take a weekend break. You've done enough.
Take a break. Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And again, the email thing is like, because Web Designer Pro is an entity of joshhall.co, I can even frame it as that.
Yeah.
I think
and
I have
then do that
now.
on joshhall.co. Make sure that I like that idea of making it like parent company, child company, at least in its kind of structure. So
Side note, this is a great case study for folks who have a personal brand and they're working towards a more professional brand, or if they have let's say somebody has a templatized wing of their business. Like you were talking about Ben actually has two businesses. He has his personal brand for custom websites, and then he has Zebra
Site Studios.
Yeah, Zebra Site Studios. Thank you. Better listener than I am. He has that for his niche website. So it's like a brand under his personal brand. So this is the way to go about it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that makes sense. Yeah. So if you did it that way, then I think you can keep on using your old email address.
Cool.
As long as it's clear that the relationship between them is clear. So if somebody was confused, they could be like, oh, of course, this makes sense.
And having a contact page with a contact form would alleviate all of that, because that's where people would go for support and for contact.
Or just like people that have questions. They're like, I don't know. I recently purchased somebody's online course and I didn't know which of the courses in their collection I should buy. And so I sent an email saying, okay, here's my situation. Which one should I buy? And then they sent me an email back. So you should have something like that on Web Designer Pro, where it's pretty easy for people who just don't know which tier is for them, so that you don't have them guessing, that they can find, they can talk to you and say, oh, okay, here's your situation. Okay, I would recommend this one. So it's just something like that. A contact form would help a lot. You must already have something like that, but
right now it's just joshhall.co. Yeah, there's one form for current customers or students or members of Pro, and then there's one form for like guest reach outs or just general questions, or somebody who hasn't paid me. So yeah, that's basically how it's set. It's like, hey, you paid me. Here's the limo. Here's direct service. Haven't paid me yet? Wait in line. No, but that is, it would be a lot simpler for sure to just have a contact form on Pro on a contact.
And then you
know
know where they're coming from too. Then you know the context with which they filled out the form.
Yeah. And I could load that page with like, if you have questions about courses, here's what I recommend. If you have questions about this, could have some resources down there. So I like that idea.
We've certainly made you a lot of work in this conversation.
The thing is, though, I thought about that. It's like all of this is going to happen regardless. It's almost a matter of, is it on joshhall.co or is it on Pro? I'm going to do the 50 ways to get web design clients. Sure as hell makes it easier for me to have that, like, know where that's going to go. Have the right funnel in place to know I'm going to release it. Because there's a lot of things I've released and I'm like, man, I wish I would have had a better funnel for that. As much as I hate to be all marketing and funnely, I've got some videos. I mean, my migrating WordPress video is the number one still
for years.
And
years.
I had no, like, I do have a cPanel course I mentioned in the description, but I could update that with like, if you want help with your business, here's where to go. And on generalized content that could be applicable to everybody, I can say, here's a free guide to help start your business. Here's a free guide to help you grow to 6 figures. Here's a free guide to scale. On that isn't like a direct category of those. So,
and what I tell clients too is that when you're first creating a piece of content, so you do all the research that you can to make sure that you have a really good chance of getting a solid amount of traffic under this piece of content. Like we've done, getting web design clients, we know people are searching that. So in that sense, you write the content, you do really well, but you don't necessarily have to do what I like to think of as like a content upgrade right at launch. So like, once you've launched a site, and so once your site is really humming along and you have 5 pages that are like all the traffic is coming to these 5 pages, that's where you start making like specific lead magnets that are the next step for that particular thing. So this idea that we had about making like an email sequence or a challenge that's associated with the 50 ways to get clients, maybe that you only launch after it's already getting a decent amount of traffic. So like when you know that there's eyeballs on it, so that there's people that are already seeing it. So you could launch the actual thing, get it ranking, and then add the sort of content upgrade that's like the perfect fit thing for that person who just searched that.
Gotcha.
But then
That
again,
makes
you
sense.
already have all these other distribution channels like podcasts and email. So like people will be seeing it even before the SEO takes off. So in that sense, maybe that doesn't really apply to you.
I know. And I wanted to kind of throw it to you to see if you had any more questions that we haven't touched on. I mean, the next thing would be like, well, what about the podcast, the newsletter? I know, like you mentioned Jay Klaus. It was cool because I've known Jay for a while. I saw him. He's local to me. So I think we connected in 2020. And I saw him kind of build similar to what I did, almost like a personal brand, and then have a brand name that evolved and changed to Creator Science. And what he did, which made me really jealous in many ways, was just put everything under Creator Science. So Creator Science is the podcast, it is the newsletter, it is his content, but his membership is the lab. So it is different. It's not the Creator Science membership. As much as I like that, I think it would be confusing to have like the Web Designer Pro newsletter, Web Designer Pro podcast, because it's already a private podcast feed for members.
Yep.
So and Web Design Business podcast has worked well.
Like you said, like people love, and like I know, but like I think I texted you like or DM'd you when you launched Web Designer Pro, the merch, and I'm like, you have a good brand name when people like eagerly put it on their bodies because it's such a good brand name. And so like I think there's something to keeping that exclusive to the actual community, because otherwise it might lose its
That's
sparkle,
a good point.
Maybe
That's
it will
a
lose its
really good
sparkle.
point.
Where a Web Designer
I
Pro
didn't
is
think
a
about
place.
that.
It's a community.
Yeah. When you
Not just all the things
join,
you do.
even at the courses level, when you join, it's a part of you. Yeah, that's the goal, is for folks to feel like they're now a Web Designer Pro. I mean, how many people have recently joined and said like, I'm so excited to be a Web Designer Pro now?
Yeah.
That's been one of the coolest things I've seen recently.
Well,
is the people who feel
Liz,
that,
my friend, who's now like in the beginning stages of launching her business, she just launched her first like paid website by somebody that she did not know before, and I bought her a Web Designer Pro mug. Like that was her gift.
Awesome.
So we're gonna get a picture of the two of us holding our mugs.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Yeah, that's a great point. That if Web Designer Pro was public and out-facing entities, it would lose the like. Well, I'm a pro if I listen to the podcast. So that's a great call. Yeah. So I'm going to keep joshhall.co with like Divi, WordPress stuff. The podcast will remain there unless I ever decide to put that on its own domain as the Web Design Business Podcast. My newsletter is still going to be me, which I kind of like that too, because I might start making my newsletter a little more, I'll direct it to Web Designer Pro, but there are some times where I just have like general entrepreneurial tips and advice that apply to web designers. So I think that's what my newsletter is going to be. I may even rename my newsletter just Josh Hall's newsletter. I don't know. Instead of it being Web Biz Weekly, which it is now, which I would be happy to drop. It's kind of hard to say. And people aren't really identifying with that necessarily. So it might just be the Josh Hall newsletter for a while. I don't know.
But I do love your newsletter. I read it every week. But also like, it is nice to have something that's yours, right? Like I can understand like being too hemmed in just as a human being. Like if everything in your life is Web Designer Pro, that might just feel a little stifling. And so it makes sense that you still have some outlets for like, your whole personality, like the whole person. It makes sense. It's been a fun
if my
conversation.
newsletters turn to like my favorite Star Wars movies and why, then I'll blame it on you for encouraging me to.
Sounds good. I'll reply.
That one might actually go over really well. I might throw
Probably.
that in there. Josh's, top 10 favorite movies. Maybe we'll see how that goes. That's
what you should do over Christmas. Something light over Christmas.
I like that. That's a good idea. Yeah, it's a really good idea.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, was there anything else? I mean, I'm good on time.
I think that we got everything. I think we have more than enough planned for your site as it launches, but I'm excited to see it happen in the world. And like I always, you got to do some of it in order to make it rank. But I think you can probably like really rock these new tiers with content to support them. I'm just like excited to see it happen.
So priority list here. I'm going to coach myself because we have to put I don't know that we necessarily need to put deadlines on this, but I do need to at least know the priority list. So priority 1 should probably be the lead generators because everything is going to funnel to those.
Well, especially if you haven't made the third one yet. So go ahead and make the third one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But I didn't want to do that until I knew where's that going to go. So there's some work to do there. So lead generators, priority 1. And then probably the course pages, which
Mhm.
I guess technically the course pages would be priority one, because courses could go over to webdesignerpro.com.
And
then
you can
lead
do those in a cut
generators.
and paste kind of version. Like that doesn't have to be a huge project.
Right. Yeah, that one I can just export. Although webdesignerpro.com is using Divi 5 and JoshHall.co is Divi 4. So I will have to work on that. I know that now that 5 is really close to being released, which I don't recommend anyone do what I did, because I actually went live with a beta version of a theme. So webdesignerpro.com is in beta. Like it's actually using the beta theme. But because it's a one pager, I don't have any other plugins. It hasn't been an issue. And I have a fallback plan, God forbid. But I
You
live
are a
life
web
on the edge.
designer. You can.
I am not risk averse. So yeah, so I think Christian was like, dude, did you seriously launch webdesignerpro.com with Divi 5 in beta? And I was like, that's right. Yes, I did. West Side. So course pages first.
Also, I hate to tell you
lead.
this, but probably a homepage that's separate, right? Like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the Web Designer Pro is like basically a sales page.
Yeah.
So, like,
totally
if it's a bigger
right.
site, you might need a homepage.
Web Designer Pro membership.
Yeah.
Which Ann Capuzza is actually trademarking that term for me.
Awesome.
Web Designer Pro membership.
Yeah.
So, oh shoot, I didn't think about that.
Sorry to introduce
I'm not.
the
That's
concept
a great call, because I guarantee I would have got going on this one. I've been like, shit, I gotta change the menu and figure out what the landing page is going to be, or the homepage is going to be. So no, you're totally right. What do you think? Should the landing?
Okay, I'll give you my copy 2 cents on homepages.
Okay, sure.
Which is, when you think about a homepage, it's like the entry to your house, right? So it's like you're hosting a party and people are coming in, and you want to say like, oh, like if you're interested in a great conversation, head over here to the living room. And if you're interested in joining Web Designer Pro, I have a page for that. So like, your homepage just needs to act as a wayfinding tool to the stuff that's on the site at any given moment. And so like at the beginning, I don't think that's a very complicated wayfinding tool, because you've got the courses, you've got the membership, probably the merch is going to have its own page, if nothing else, because people can purchase it. And so
I know that's going to be like, I need to get with Christian on that, because now I'm like, do I need to just move over the WooCommerce store front?
Well, you do offer you can buy the merch even if you're not yet part of Pro. Like you get a discount if you're in Pro, but they are available, correct?
So just keep that at joshhall.co for now. Yeah.
But I mean, you should at least allow people to purchase it at Web Designer Pro. That would make sense to me. I mean, it's got the logo on it.
I would just need to duplicate.
Yeah.
Or I would need to move the WooCommerce store with those products, at least those products in WooCommerce with their settings. And there is some customizations that Christian did. But that was also because my courses and other products were sold at joshhall.co with WooCommerce. So it was like a different category of products.
Maybe version 1 is a page on webdesignerpro.com that introduces the concept of merch, which you can then go purchase at joshhall.co.
Yeah, that's a good call.
But anyways, so for the homepage, I think it just needs to be like a wayfinding tool to the site itself, with a big emphasis, of course, on this is Web Designer Pro. If you want to find out about Web Designer Pro, go to the Web Designer Pro page. Yeah.
So I'm writing this down. So priority list, homepage, which would be kind of more the directory to everything there. Hidden pages, which just right now are like my page on, contact, upgrade, downgrade, that kind of thing. Basically like administrative pages, kind of. Yeah. And I could do privacy, accessibility statement, terms and conditions. I would need to get a new one there. Need to see if Hans and Donato, a term again, will give me another privacy policy option. So again, this is where it's like, for anyone who's listening to this, like, yeah, it'd be no big deal to just move over some things to a new website. It's like, well, hold up. A lot of different moving parts here, as even with a quote unquote simple website that could be 20 pages. Now we're actually looking at 25 to 30, maybe even more. So the sales page for Pro, the membership page, the courses pages, swag, ideally at least a page for swag that I could eventually move over from joshhall.co. That wouldn't be the end of the world. And then the lead pages, the lead generators, signups.
I'm going to give you another one. Testimonials, like client
Yes,
success.
case studies. Yep, duh. Knew I was missing something because I've got new content, but then case studies. Yeah,
Like you're doing a great job with the testimonials on all of the rest of your site. So don't move those. But I think that it makes sense to have one page that's about people's stories.
Yep. Yeah. And a lot of those testimonial videos that are on YouTube, which I'm going to make public, they're unlisted right now, but I'm going to start to promote it. I mean, I've got a whole year of work here which is kind of cool because I can like post a new video, make it public, and then have the right lead generator for them to go to Web Designer Pro. So again, this is like the foundation. It's all about this because this is going to dictate everything I do moving forward with how I market it and promote it. So case studies, which like I said, I already have like a dozen at joshhall.co that I haven't promoted yet.
That's
that are
so you can launch one at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could be a newsletter. Yeah, exactly. I could do one a month, whatever. But those, like, I've already got started, so I would just move them over and start to launch them. And the new content, the new pillar pieces.
One per quarter.
Can I do at least one like every 2 months?
Sure.
I'm not going to be able to constrain myself. I'm not going to kill myself, but because I've been doing newsletters, a lot of them are going to be like newsletters put together that I've done because I've got someone like recurring revenue and support.
And then as you make it, you launch it with a newsletter. So like the point of that newsletter for the week that you launch it is click-throughs to the resource.
Yeah.
You just write something that's like, good luck not clicking on this button because I've teased it so well.
I like that line. Good luck not clicking this. That's great. Okay. So sweet. That's my list right there. That's my priority list.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thanks for involving me in this project. It's like great fun to plan this stuff out.
I wanted to get your insight on that. I mean, you've seen this from when I sold. We met when I sold in transit and was starting joshhall.co. Essentially, you're really just kind of making it more official. So what's it like for you? I've been listening to your
podcast for like absolute ages. So for someone who actually doesn't do web design, it's kind of funny. But yeah, I followed your story the whole time. And so it's fun to see this thing always like evolving and getting even better. And like, it's just been a joy. So thanks for having me part of your community.
Well, you are not only are you a huge part of Pro with the community, but you're a huge part of this, my online presence. I mean, this very conversation show, like this is the kind of thing we would, I would normally just get a consult call with you and just talk about this. But like I said before, I forget if we were recording or not, but I'm happy to make this public because this is the kind of thing that needs to go into an SEO strategy when you're thinking, especially if you have a personal brand and a business or a wing of your business and you're thinking through these complexities. But this is like the most fun I've had with SEO because this little plan is like this strategy session is now the roadmap to dictate all of the work I do over the next year with getting this.
And I do this with clients. So like I just recently, you don't even really know this, but I just recently launched a thing, which is an SEO strategy package because I think SEO is learned in the doing. Like you can watch a million courses on it, but like it gets real when you're talking about a site. And so like I do something very similar to this with clients where they can sign up. I research the site. I come up with like their next best 3 actions. We don't always make a 1-year plan. But to actually like, everybody's SEO strategy needs to be different. And it's great fun for me to come up with them, especially if I don't have to do all the implementation. So just to say that, like, I think that anyone who's scared of SEO, who's listening to this, and I know that's a lot of people, like it's learned in the doing, like just do it with a fun site that you care about, that you want to grow, that you want other people to find it on the internet. And like, it's very doable. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. I mean, I built most of my SEO presence without doing barely any true keyword research. I mean, you helped me with some on some terms, but the Elegant Team's blog articles, I learned a lot doing that. And then YouTube was just like, here's what I would search. And you
knew your audience. That's the key thing, right? Like
that's
if you know who your audience is, you don't necessarily need like all the fancy dancy keyword research because you knew what the questions people were asking and then you make content for them.
No, you're so right. Well, you've been a huge help, Michelle. This has been awesome. I really, this was something where I didn't feel overwhelmed or stressed about it because it's optional. I didn't have to do this, but as I mentioned, with this vision over the next few years here, both short term and long term, I knew that this was the time to think about this. And like we mentioned, I have all this like pillar content. I'm ready to get going on. I'm like, I don't want to do it until this is ready. So I got my priority list. This strategy has been super fun. Your insight. I mean, I needed this sounding board to make sure I was on the right track. And you've given me a lot of additional things to think about with this. And yeah, I'm freaking pumped. So thank you, because I'm pumped.
Stay in touch. I'll help you as you do it. As it actually like comes, like make sure you give me an email if you get stuck at any point.
Well, you reminded me, we did an SEO strategy session like 2 years ago with some of these terms that I think is still really relevant. So I'll circle back around to that for content.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're good to go. All right, Michelle. Well, thank you for your time. This has been so awesome. Super pumped. Appreciate you. Thank you for all you do for Pro. I mean, you are a huge selling point to Pro. When people join, you're like, oh my gosh, Michelle. So
I love it in there.
Don't go anywhere.
Best place on the internet. I'm not going anywhere. Like I gave up all social media and I'm only in Pro. So you've got me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I need a testimonial from you that's like, I don't need social media because I have Pro.
I will write that testimonial in a heartbeat for you.
That might be my success story. That might be another case study for Center Pro. So heck yeah. All right, Michelle, thanks so much. Appreciate you. Ready for the next one already. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this one, friends. It was fun to do this kind of chat, which would normally be behind the scenes and off air. But again, there was nothing proprietary here that we talked about. So happy to share this with you. I hope this has helped you out, whether you are a personal brand and you have a business brand, or whether you have multiple businesses or brands online, or if you're just curious about what goes into this kind of SEO strategy. I hope this helps you. This is the kind of thing you can do for clients, by the way. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Again, as a listener of the show, as a supporter of me, or as a member of Web Designer Pro, or maybe as a legacy student who has purchased one of my courses in the past, I'd love to hear from you. Go to joshhall.co/357 until that URL changes. No, I don't know if I'm going to change the podcast, but I'd love to hear from you. I really, really would. I'd very much value your insight as well. Because ultimately this is for you, to make it easier for you on where to go now that I have 2 domains online. joshhall.co/357. Again, we'll have links there to Michelle's stuff, including her website or past episodes. Do yourself a favor and connect with her. And if you really want to connect with her, join Web Designer Pro, because that's where, as she says, she is. She doesn't even need social media because she's in Web Designer Pro. She's one of our most engaged members. Actually, I think she's second. I think she's our second most engaged. Let me look at the leaderboard real quick. I think she may be. Circle now has a leaderboard function. She is all-time number 2. She's all-time number 2 engaged member of Web Designer Pro. So my gosh, it's just another value add to join Pro. You get access to Michelle, who, as you can see, is just freaking awesome. That's why I'm so glad to have her in my corner for the SEO side of things and much more. So check her out. And again, show notes, joshhall.co/357. Thanks for joining. Can't wait to hear your feedback. And I will see you on the next episode. We're going to have some fun ones as we head into Christmas and the end of the year here. So let's sit down and relax and have some fun together as we wrap up 2024.